Children of the fog, something wicked this way comes, and it's me, OldManBronze, and we're here to talk to you about the PTR coming tomorrow and the brand new developer update. Welcome to the BronzeCast. Yes. And so we're going to just jump right in, and we are going to start addressing everything point by point and see if we can make any sense out of what's going on right now and give you my thoughtful opinions on everything that they're doing right now. So we're going to head right over and take a look at it. Developer update. All ready for the PTR starting tomorrow, which we will be playing, so we can get some insight into what's going on. Words. The clown gameplay update. So most of you have probably heard about these things that are going on, the changes. The clown is going to get a second bottle, the Afterpiece Antidote. This new throw wall shatters and releases a delayed yellow gas, and that's important. That is delayed. Once the gas activates, anyone who steps in the gas receives a 10% movement speed bonus. Like your tonic, this effect lingers for a few seconds after leaving the gas. You can swap between tonics and antidotes by tapping the active ability button at any time. And this next part is important as well. Antidote is not just a name. It will cure any negative effects from the Afterpiece tonic. So if a survivor goes through your pinky purple cloud to slow down, and then you have played it at the same loop, and then they run into your yellow cloud, it will cleanse them and give them a 10% move speed buff. Okay, let's dig in, shall we? Now, the clown obviously needs some love. They are going to look at both. They've done an add-on pass, and I'm very, very interested to see what they're doing there, especially since they have done something important and I think key to any rework or relook at the clown, and they have reduced the time taken to reload your bottles down from 5 at base down to 3. That is great. That is super, super great. And I am glad to hear it. It's one of the things that if I ever wanted to see any clown changes, these were some of the changes that I would like to have seen right off the bat. And so I'm right on board with that. One of the things that holds you back and slows you down is the reloads. And same thing goes for the Huntress or the Deathslinger or anyone who has to reload what they're doing to continue a chase. So that's huge. Now honestly, that's a great quality of life for the clown, and I think that you'll see benefits from that from day one. The second part that I would like to talk about is the Afterpiece Antidote. Okay, now there could be potential for some good play here. Okay, like while you're running around the map, you can speed yourself up by throwing one of these in front of you, and then by the time you get to that cloud, it will activate. Because you'll see it in any sort of videos that they've shown. It looks like a kind of a neutral gas cloud, and then after a couple seconds, it will turn yellow, and that means it's active, and that means whoever goes through that, yourself or a survivor, will get a 10% move speed buff. Now this can help you by helping you traverse the map faster, which leads to greater map pressure. I think that that's a great thing. I think a mistake would be using this anywhere near a loop. Now, while the clown is not truly anti-loop, if you play it well, he can be. It makes loops harder. It can get you that just the tip hit right before someone reaches a pallet or a window or things like that. There's a lot of things that I think are positive about the clown. Most people crap on him as the worst killer in the game. You guys have watched me and many other people play him at rank 1 successfully. There are games that end up spinning out of control, but that almost goes for just about any killer that you're going to play, outside of being maybe, you're a 5,000 hour nurse, or you've got a couple thousand hours in the spirit. There are killers that are in that upper echelon to where their natural abilities are able to kind of I don't want to say break the game, but they definitely reward you for putting the time into them. The clown, he slows people down, and that can be very helpful at many parts of the game. His map pressure is not great. The yellow bottles can help with that and help you get around the map faster, but you're going to really want to be careful using yellow bottles when you are chasing a survivor. I think the interesting thing here is, instead of just adding, kind of an additional, level of slow, or maybe extending without using the add-ons, the area or the duration of the intoxication effect, we have now a buff to survivor speed. I'm not a super fan of it, right? Like, here's the thing. Like, there's not a lot of killer abilities in the game that buff survivors, right? And now, in this all-encompassing add-on rework and, let's take another look at the clown. The clown is now technically, I believe, and I could be wrong, but the first killer in the game who can now buff survivors. WTF. Now, obviously, careful use of the bottles will help avoid that, but the fact that they felt the need to change this to where there is kind of a trade-off to playing this bottle, the secondary bottle, which in my opinion isn't all that necessary, just to make the first bottle better. The first bottle was nowhere near as good as, like, Freddy's spammable blood pools that you could literally just drop at will non-stop, and you had an unlimited supply of them. They would just overwrite old ones, much like the Hag's traps. Superior in every way to the clown's gas. Well, maybe not in every way, but in many ways, especially when you're looping around smaller loops with a pallet, different jungle gyms. I mean, you can pull off some very nice plays with those blood pools, but you can also do the same with the clown's gas. A little harder, but nonetheless, it always felt like, like, let's say Freddy's blood pools were basically a superior version of the clown's bottles. They do have to be asleep, but that's never really a problem in a Freddy game, is it? Between hitting them and between the passive falling asleep, most of the time, those things are going to land, and they're going to land when you want them to land and add a nice slowdown. I believe that at base, that it is a 20% slowdown from Freddy's blood pools, and it's a 15% slowdown at base for the clown's bottles, right? All they need was to bump that. Honestly, bump it and increase the add-on speed, decrease the reload speed for the clown's bottles, and maybe an add-on pass, and frankly, I would have been happy. I didn't want a brand new clown, and I don't think we got a brand new clown, but I do think that it's very telling about sort of the direction of the game right now, is that to buff a killer, it requires them to have like a sort of accidental buff to survivors, to where you have to make hard choices about whether you throw that your yellow bottle or not. Just make the purple bottle better. Like, that's all they needed to do. I will still play the clown. I love the clown. If it wasn't for Granny, I would probably be a filthy clown main, because I enjoy the challenge, and I also enjoy his character, like, both his sound effects and both just what he does. You can play the clown well, and you can play the clown well at the highest ranks, but there are good teams that are going to stomp you, and that kind of goes for most killers, unless, once again, you are a top echelon nurse, spirit, and then there's kind of everybody else after that. So am I excited to see what the add-ons are, and am I excited to see a faster reload speed on the clown? Absolutely. Am I excited to see the secondary bottles, the yellow bottles, that will help me speed up and get me where I want to go faster? I think so. I think that there are some positive things there, but I think the fact that they have to bundle in this buff to survivor speeds if you throw it at the wrong place or use it inappropriately, it's going to take some time to get used to. I personally am probably only going to use it for travel. I can't see any value of it at a loop, right? You do not want your after-piece tonic, your slowdown that's allowing you to catch up and get that hit in. You don't want that being cleansed at any time. So I think it's going to be useful. I just don't think that there's going to be a lot of great interplay like they're talking about, where you can, give the survivor a choice. Either they go to this loop or they take your fancy, 10% speed boost and use that to run to a different palette that might be more favorable to you, or a different loop. Good survivors aren't going to care. They'll take the 10% move speed buff and use it to their advantage, and it's just going to extend your chase. So that's my thoughts on the clown. I will be playing the PTR tomorrow, and we'll be playing a lot of clown, and we'll be playing a lot of Wraith, and we'll get to that in a little bit. HUD update. Here we are. Out with the old and with the new. Got some fond memories of the in-game HUD. After 4 years of additions, it felt it was time to rebuild from ground up. Seeing is believing. Couple examples of what we can expect. Okay, this is fine. First thing that I like here, I like seeing the profile of actually who is playing. The only way that you could find out who was playing the Dwight and who was playing the Kate and who was playing the Nancy was by quickly hitting the escape button at the beginning of the match and then seeing the readout. It would tell you who was who, but that's just a very, very basic thing. What they're doing here in general, without going into overwhelming detail, with the character portraits, hook counter in progress, and the UI scale option is nice as well. Moving things to where they're more visible can be handy. I don't mind this up here. What would be ideal, honestly, super ideal, is if you could unlock these and you could move them to any part of the screen that you wanted. That would be super ideal. I know they aren't planning on doing that in their discussion that they have up here, and you should watch this if you haven't. It talks about their plans for the UI and future editions. Watching a few other of my more respected streamers and their opinions on this, what it looks like they're doing here is they're trying to help solos with more information. And you're getting some decent information as killer too. I like this hook counter because, like I talk about again and again and again, when I play, I'm all about chases and hooks. And I want as many hooks as I can get in a game. I want as many good chases as I can get in a game. That scores points better for me, that scores points better for the survivors, and people find it to be a more enjoyable game. If you have any experience or have watched any competitive Dead by Daylight, all that stuff gets thrown out the window for many reasons, and the killer is going to try to get 4 hooks to stop the survivors from scoring any points at all. That's what competitive is all about. All they need to do is gens, and you need to slug out an entire team and one hook them. In public matches, obviously that's not ideal. It's not fun. You don't pip, you don't make blood points, but competitive is another ball of wax. But that's kind of the mindset behind it, right? So here, once again, we're having a concerted effort to rework things to give newer players and most likely solo players more information. And I'm not against that. Not at all. Especially, I want this to be a very beginner-friendly experience for both survivors and killers. And these things help, right? These portraits, these hook counters. You're also going to have a hook counter on the people who have been downed or on a hook. It's going to let you know whether or not it's a priority to save them, whether they can hang a little bit. Is this person on dead hook? Is this person, how many times have they been hooked? Sometimes you lose count of that. For more experienced players, that's not such a big deal, and this is more just like a quality of life issue. But for younger players and people who are just starting the game, this is going to give them good information that they didn't necessarily have available to them right away. And I think that's fine. Plus, it also leaves them lots of room to add in new things in the future, and I am always excited to see what they're going to bring into the game. But people are really thinking that this is where they're going to try to make a shift to try to help bring solo play closer to the level of information that group play provides, without obviously, being on comms, and without necessarily being a group of 4, even a group of 2. Whatever. I mean, people will benefit from this, and the hook counter for the killer really gives you a good idea about exactly how well you are doing. You can win a game by only getting 4 hooks. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. It's not going to score you blood points. It's not going to make anybody very happy with you. And not that, once again, as a killer, is it your job to make people happy? You're there to win. It just as the survivors are. They're there to escape and rack up blood points and, spend it on whatever. But what I think we're seeing here is the first steps at something that has been talked about for a while is bringing up solos to a more equal level of groups. As killer, is that a fantastic thing? But I think it's more beginner friendly, and it's going to help people out when they are newer to the game, and that's going to help keep people in the game, help give people more information while they're playing the game as a solo, and that's going to help keep better retention as they go forward. They're going to learn more. Right? They're going to be more aware of the things in the map because they're being pushed in their face, right? It's like, if you don't know how many hooks that Kate has in her, now you do. I mean, you could usually tell whether or not by just looking at the health bar, and for the rest of us, that's fine. But we also have more experience than someone who's been playing this game a week, and so I think that's a great thing, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to add there. The fact that you can scale it to your preference is a nice touch as well. They do have the Survivor locomotion animation update, and if you see the video, they actually directly refer to teabagging and assure people that it still exists, but it's not so much just a quick up and down. There's actually, you won't be able to teabag as fast anymore. I'm sorry. It's a shame. Another big thing that's coming in: matchmaking, rating, and rank rewards. So the whole idea of matchmaking is coming back into the game. They have taken all the data that they've had from the previous tests, and they've made their tweaks, and they are going to put this back in the game. Now, what this means for killers and what it means for everybody, let's start there, is that at the beginning of every season, you are going to start over. Rank does not mean anything anymore. This fancy number, all it says is what kind of reward you will get at the end of the season. And that's great. I've always, we've talked extensively about playing at rank 1 and the lack of rewards and the lack of kind of desire to want to play the sweatiest games on earth to keep that rank 1 title, right? But now it's going to take a lot of time for you to get from rank 20 to rank 1, probably the whole month, whereas within the first week, most people at rank 1 who got reset to rank 5, within a handful of games, maybe a couple days worth of playing, they're going to be back at rank 1 and remain at rank 1 or bounce down to rank 2 briefly for the rest of the season. Here, you're going to have to invest a decent amount of time into the game to get down to rank 1, and yet that rank means absolutely nothing. That's sort of problematic to me. Ranks have always kind of been a touchy subject for everybody, because on one side you have a group that says they don't matter. You can have people that are rank 10 that just don't play as much and they can't put the hours in to progress through the system of pips and put in enough games to get farther, but they could be a very, very talented survivor or a very, very talented group of survivors. I played green and purple ranks that are just as good, if not better, than some of the red rank teams that I play. It's a matter of time that you put in. So these are going to be terribly misleading, right? These now officially mean nothing except for the blood point bonus that you get at the end of the month, the amount of time that you've put in to Dead by Daylight over the course of that month. And then after that, then you reset back to 20. This is the way things used to be, and it's fine. And I'm glad that they're finally putting some rewards into it. I don't know if everyone's going to be terribly receptive to having to start the grind over at 20 every month, especially since really all you're getting is some bonus blood points, which should have been baked into being rank 1 at the very least a long time ago, but it's a step in the right direction. Also, now what this means for killers is that you are going to have an internal MMR for each killer, which I think is okay, especially after this month of Nurse or Nothing. If you've been watching along with me, we've had some good matches, and we've spent some time to finally learn the Nurse after 2,000 hours of playing Dead by Daylight. Playing Nurse for basically the first time at rank 1 has been sometimes a painful experience. I've had some great games, and I've also gotten punched in the face, and I've learned a lot. I do think that it's valuable for me to have learned and taken the time to play against very good survivors with a Nurse. If I was just playing inexperienced survivors, or it's just solo groups that are brown and yellow ranks, you're not going to learn a lot there. You need to play against people who know how to juke. You need to know how to break line of sight. And you need to learn how to play along with that. So, but also there was concern. There was fear. Like, is this going to be like the worst month of OldManBronze Presents ever? And I don't think it was. I mean, I have played a lot of requests and stuff, and I've been having a lot of fun with that. But now you can go in and you can play whatever killer you want, and you are going to get matched with people of that same MMR. I think that's fine. I think that gives you, especially newer killers, it gives you more incentive to try out other killers and start developing skills with them. For the rest of us, I don't know. Like, do I want to go through and raise my MMR on every single killer across the board so they can all play in red ranks? Or do I want to play, let's say I'm a filthy hag main, right? I love Granny. So my highest MMR, my secret hidden kind of matchmaking thing, will be the highest on her, perhaps. And so I'm streaming or I'm recording content for YouTube, and I will have super sweaty, hard games as Hag. Very satisfying. Maybe it's going to be a win, and maybe it's going to be a loss, but it's going to be a tough game. And then the next game I play is as the Nurse, who after this month I will not play as much, and her MMR is much, much less. Now I'm probably going to be matched against much lower MMR'd survivors, and even with my poorer Nurse skills, the fact that I'm not playing her as much, I am still going to steamroll those kids. Is that good? I don't know. Like, what it does is it rewards you for playing, a select few killers more during the course of a season by getting appropriate matches. My biggest concern here with all of the multiple MMRs for, the X amount of killers that are in this game and how that's going to work out, who you're going to face, how is this going to affect queue times for killer and survivor? Right, as you've seen me on the stream many times, I comment daily for every stream about how much longer that survivor queues than they are for killer. There is a population imbalance in this game, and even with crossplay enabled, I have insta queues as a rank 1 killer. You see it every night. Like, I pick a killer, 2 seconds later, queue pops, we wait, we play. I play as Bill, who I got up to rank 7 this season, and we'll work up to rank 1, but now I don't know if this part matters. But my MMR will start making me face against better killers each month after I restart from 20 every season. I was just working down from rank 20. Oh, that sucks. This is going to be questionable what it does to matchmaking. And the times, queue times to me are way, way more important for everybody involved than this blood point bonus. 250,000 blood points you can make in a handful of games. Playing for a couple hours, you've already got 250,000 blood points. Is it nice? Sure. Was it enough? Is this the way to go? I don't know. We will see how matchmaking times work out. I think that is going to suffer directly when you start throwing so many different MMRs across the 18 or 19 killers that we have. And you're going to, like, if I don't play a ton of Deathslinger, I'm a rank 1 killer, and I go in and I end up playing folks in a lower MMR, I'm going to wreck them. It's not going to be a fun experience for a group of newer survivors with a lower hidden MMR ranking. If I go in with a killer that I just don't put all that time into that month, whoever I'm facing is probably going to have a bad time. Because I know how to play the game, and just because I haven't put the time into that killer that month, because like me, I like my themes. I like to play a handful of killers each month. Keeps it fresh. Gives me a theme to work around. It also allows me to focus my blood point investment into those killers to keep their add-ons up and pick up any perks that I might want or need, whatever the case may be. But then if I start doing requests and I haven't played a single game on Myers so far all season, and then I go in versus a bunch of people who would be the equivalent of rank 15 to rank 20, because that's where their MMR is. I am probably going to eat them. And that's not going to be fun for them. And everything that we are seeing that they're changing is all about changing the new player experience and making that new player experience a very rewarding one, where you get information and you have fun and you invest more time in the game and you invest more money into the game, you buy skins for your favorite characters and you do all those things. Now these same people that are protected from rank 15 to rank 20 to never ever playing a person like me unless they're paired up with a squad are now going to be people that when I play a random killer that I am not usually playing, whether I'm doing it for video content or whether I'm doing it for streaming on requests for during the streams, those people are not going to have a good time. And so this is sort of counterproductive to that new player experience. Those are kind of my thoughts there. Mostly I'm concerned about queue times. As someone who plays Survivor as well, and not as much as a killer. I am a killer main, but I also enjoy and appreciate the Survivor side. The queues are not fun. Like, as a streamer, sitting around and trying to come up with as much small talk as humanly possible instead of actually playing the game and giving people the content that they want, I love talking with everybody and I love having people to chat with. I feel blessed. But on the other hand, knowing that you're going to have a 5 to 10 minute wait in between your matches that might last nothing because you've got someone who's going to tunnel and camp you out and or slugs out the entire team, super not rewarding. Like, I think they need to look into that. I think that we'll see how this plays out, but those are the things that I fear. I fear queue times for survivors are going to get worse. And I also fear that that good quality killers who generally play across the board up in red ranks up to rank 1, when they play someone that they don't usually play, are going to end up facing folks in this rank, in a lower MMRs, and they're going to stomp them. And it is not going to feel good for those survivors. And we just keep making that cycle of evil that grows in this game, that cycle of salt. We're fanning the flames on that. And so I question this. I mean, I want to see anything that they do with it, and we'll see how it plays out. But I definitely have concerns. And like I said, their queue times, which are pretty poor for survivors across the board, and then stomping lower MMR survivors just because you're playing a killer that you don't generally play a lot. I think that we're going to see a lot of that, and I think that this is going to get looked at again. I'm also not a fan of starting over at 20, but now that ranks really just absolutely don't matter outside of a blood point reward, who cares? Like, I genuinely don't. Like, it doesn't bother me in the least. And we'll see how the other parts of it play out. We'll skip on down to a graphics update. I can't wait. Honestly, like, if there is anything in this game that makes me just go, wow, they've hit it out of the park again, and that is the art department for Dead by Daylight is top notch. Like, this is not like, you know, a photorealistic game or any of those things. The graphics have always been what they are, but the things that they have done with these new maps that we have seen and played for years, Autohaven, gorgeous. The things that they've done, Larry's looks amazing, and I am so excited to see the Asylum get a rework. And the meatpacking plant, look at how much brighter it is, and look how much more it looks like a meatpacking plant than, you know, you've got all your little, this is where stuff goes. I worked in production for years, and these beat up yellow lines were my life. This is where you run product. This is where you run your forklift. This is where you run your carts. Like, they might be in the game now. I can't see them. I don't think they are. And it's things like that that make me go, wow. Wow, wow. Thank you, Behavior. Thank you, Behavior's art department. I cannot wait to see these. All right. And so we are going to move right. We're going to move on down and talk about the Wraith. So, small package of quality life and balance changes. The Wraith, the true invisibility that has been whispered about and talked about. By all means, this is going to be a buff to the Wraith. I don't think it's going to be a huge buff to the Wraith, but it's going to help him a little bit. Outside of 24 meters, he's completely invisible. That helps. That helps. And that helps you get closer. And then, especially with the Wraith, where you have to take the time to uncloak, that's going to win points for you. Like, you might get more hits and start better chases. But the problem is, playing the Wraith against really good survivors, really you're working on using a couple different bell add-ons, whether it's a silent bell or it's the map wide bell, and to confuse survivors, to keep them, you know, kind of off kilter a little bit, or maybe they just keep hearing the bell because it's map wide, and they give up on guessing whether you're going to be at that gen they're working on, and that works in your favor. The trick is that he's kind of visible between 24 and 16. That's not bad. That's not bad if he pops in and out. It's a lot like Freddy's pill bottle add-on, where outside of 24, you really can't see him. And then from 24 to 16, he's going to fade in and out, and you can do some confusing things, and it's harder for the survivors to track where the killer is going and where they should go next. Unchanged within 16 meters. This is the gravy zone. Once you're inside of 16 meters, they can see you. And more importantly, once you get closer than that and you're getting ready to uncloak, they can hear you. You are so loud. You have emphysema and asthma and bronchitis as the Wraith. That's what you hear first. Even for people who aren't looking, they can hear you breathe a lot. He is super, super loud, and that's fine. But is this going to be a night and day change to the Wraith? No. Are you going to get some better chases and be able to start a few more chases with the Wraith and maybe get unnoticed some of the time? I think so. It's going to help with your point-to-point travel as the Wraith, but it's going to make no difference when you're closing in on a generator. You're still going to have to try to hide yourself. You're still going to have to try to be a little bit sneaky-deaky, but the in-between game, while you're traveling around the map, definitely received a buff. Outside of that, like, and that's what it says. The goal of this change is to make it harder for survivors to keep tabs on the Wraith while he's cloaked, while maintaining an opportunity for a survivor to react if you approach in the open. And that's fine. I think it's a okay quality of life for the Wraith, and we'll play it out on the PTR to the best of our abilities this week, and we'll see what happens from there. Is it game changing? No, not at all. It's not changed at all where it matters most, and the Wraith will still be the Wraith. Sorry, Bing Bong Boy. It'll be cool, but Not enough. The Trapper escape mechanic update. God, this sucks. As someone who loves playing the Trapper and loves playing the trap killers, one of the worst feelings is that someone who is even relatively close steps into a trap, right? And no one's around them, and they get out like on the first or second try, and you've dropped the chase, maybe even to go get that person if you're not running, your purple honing stone brick where they go into the dying state if they free themselves, which is a very reliable add-on to use because people will free themselves constantly. Once in a while, you get someone who would get stuck in there for a long time, but it was once in a while. We're not talking that this is the majority. And so previously it says you would have a 25% chance to escape a trap each attempt. This sounds simple on paper, but 4 attempts only adds up to roughly a 68% chance to escape. This makes traps pretty unreliable, which has always been the problem, but not necessarily for Survivor, for Killer. Survivors could get out their very first try before you had a chance to react, or they could try dozens of times without escaping. Never has that happened. Like, honestly, just dozens of times before escaping. Have I had it happen and like my 6th, 7th, 8th attempt, and then he came over and picked me up? Yeah, absolutely. But then I've also escaped traps on my 1st or 2nd attempt. Like, it was ridiculously random with that 25% chance. Do I like seeing what they're doing? Let's investigate. To combat this, we are switching to a flat distribution. Each time a survivor steps into a trap will take them between 1 and 6 attempts to escape. What does this mean? So between the first 1 and 3 attempts, the chance to escape is lower than before. So it's going to be lower than 25%. That's helpful for the killer. At 4 attempts, the chance to escape is roughly the same as before, so approximately 25%, or 1 out of every 4 attempts will get you out of there. Between 5 and 6 attempts, the chance to escape is higher than before. So if you go through and you get the 5 or 6 attempts, by your 6th attempt, you will escape. And it doesn't take long to make those 6 escape attempts, right? It's press M1, press M1. Press M1, press M1. Like, that's it. So this is, while between these first 1 and 3 attempts, if you are anywhere away from where these traps are happening, they don't matter. They just don't. And it doesn't take long to get to that 6th attempt that's going to guarantee you to get out of the trap. Whereas before, RNG might keep you a little longer. And it's very, very satisfying that RNG actually works in your favor as killer once in a while, where you would get someone in a trap that actually held until you get there. Most of the time, it wasn't even worth going to even attempt to get them if you were a decent distance away, because they were going to get out, or they were going to have someone that was right on them to help them get out, and that's not going to change. But I'm not a fan of this. It sounds good that your first attempts are harder to get out, but that doesn't mean that you still can't. It also doesn't take long to successfully accomplish each attempt. So what this has done is it has cut off anything past 6 attempts. Obviously, anything more than that, it's starting to take a long time, and you're probably going to get whacked. Is it okay? We'll see how it plays out. But honestly, each attempt doesn't take a lot of time. And so I can definitely see where if you have the worst RNG in the world as a survivor, it certainly feels bad to get anywhere past 6, 7, 8 attempts and no one's come to save you because you're not playing in a team, or you still have not gotten out and the trapper gets you. It's tricky. It's super tricky. We'll see how it plays out, but I kind of feel like this is a nerf to a killer that really doesn't need it, right? You already got to spend half your time running around the map picking up a set amount of traps, and you have to run add-ons to get a couple extra traps to make setting up your early game, or at least a little bit of the early game, already easier. Well, a little easier. And now your traps are going to have a top end of, if someone has the worst RNG in the world, the most that they will ever try to escape is 6 times. And if you are coming across the map or breaking a chase and making a choice there to go get that survivor, you may not get them. Like, if they're close enough, it's not going to be fine. It's not going to make any difference than what it did before. It's that difference that they had when people's RNG was super bad, and maybe you pulled off a super clutch trap that you're able to walk halfway across the map and grab that person. I don't know, like, not a fan. And but I also understand sitting and hitting the button 12 times and never escaping sucks for survivors too. So we'll see. Once again, not a fan. Trapper is not exactly in a position where trying to adjust his kit outside of giving him a couple more base traps to start with, not great. Deep wound adjustment. Deep wounds used to be a 30-second timer, and now it's a 20-second timer. I think that's fine. It's a buff to deep wounds. Deep wounds is not the most dangerous debuff in the game. Most of the time when you're using it, you are not relying on it for down. You're relying on it for stall. What this is kind of doing is getting rid of some of that stall. I don't know if that is it's not significant enough for me to go, wow, that's a nerf to Legion stall or Deathslinger's stall or whatever. Because really it's not super significant. But one of the parts that makes Legion is the fact that you can throw out stall on the map, and people are going to have to stop what they're doing, and they're going to have to mend, and keeping people injured is important. Don't know if it's a big deal. 10 seconds really just doesn't wow me one thing or another. But basically, it honestly is a little bit of nerf to stall, but it also adds a little more threat to the deep wounds. So it evens out. So we'll start getting to the perks that they're looking at, because these are important. Diversion, Pebble is a fun little skill, and it actually, I mean, when it first came out, like, there were things that it could, you could mess with the killer, like, and go have them chase after something that wasn't actually there. And now, but I played Pebble a couple times because I finally picked up the perk on Bill. And it's a fun little thing, and it has some use in the game, and so why not be able to use Pebble a couple more times, rather than just that once every, I think, 45 seconds that you have to stand within the killer's terror radius. I'm fine with that. It's a buff to diversion, not a super big use perk, but whatever. It'll be fine. I have no terrible things to say about that, because it's Pebble. Pebble's fun. Fixated. Don't you hate it when you get hit so hard you forget how to walk slightly faster? Us too. Fixated will now remain active even if you're injured. This kind of feels like this maybe was just an unattended part of the perk when it first came out, and they're just fixing it. It's a buff to Fixated, and once again, fixing or adjusting less commonly used perks is great because it might help people want to use them more, but you're not going to replace your core 4 to 6 to 8 perks with Fixated because they have adjusted it, or Pebble for that matter, unless you're playing in a team and you're having fun, like, messing around. And here is the granddaddy, ladies and gentlemen. As we have been talking about for some time, Hex Undying was most likely going to get nerfed. And we're going to try to keep this as tight as possible, but we'll run it down real quick. So watching this one closely, there's a few things we'd like to address. Transferring the same Hex multiple times can get out of hand. Hexes are meant to be strong perks that can be destroyed, and having to destroy the same Hex 4 times can be a bit much. I would agree. I would absolutely agree. The problem is that situation rarely happens. The survivors are going to say that it happens all the time. As a killer playing through my games, there are plenty of times where Rune and Undying within the first 3 minutes of the game are both gone, even with the transfer totem mechanic, because they could hit your Undying first, which would be Undying's gone, and then they could find your Ruin, and then Ruin's gone. So So 2 totems total, especially with people running maps, Detective's Hunch, small game. There's plenty of counterplay to this perk as it was. Once again, this didn't affect people in high ranks nearly as much as it affected people at lower ranks. And that's where a lot of the problems that we have in DBD come from, is that the devs are trying to balance it and making it a more friendly game at lower ranks, and the effects that it has are much more amplified once you're playing up in red ranks and you're playing against really good squads or even really good solos. I mean, that's the problem. We're balancing the game to make it kid friendly and treating it with white gloves at the early levels to make sure that new people want to play the game, and I support that. But those things are problematic once you get to rank 1 and you're playing the best of the best and you're playing, ninja death squads. And that's not every game, but that doesn't mean that those games aren't out there, and you will run into them on the regular. It's not every single game that you play at rank 1 is against a group of very talented survivors that are playing, full meta and coordinated build outs and are on comms. No. But when you do, you feel it. There is within the first minute of the game what you're playing and who you're playing against. And when you can see this perk that is so super strong that drop off and you've wasted 2 perk slots within the first 2 minutes, super feels bad. Since tokens aren't transferred when a hex totem changes, Undying was unpopular with perks other than Ruin. This is exactly true. So if you use Huntress Lullaby, if you use Devour Hope, try to do things that built up on the token system, and they cleansed that exact totem. If they cleansed your Devour, or if they cleansed your Huntress Lullaby, that totem would respawn to Adult Totem, but it would reset all your stacks. So it really, really was not worth running. You might get some use out of it the second time around, but if you were at 5 stacks of Huntress Lullaby and they happen to find that totem, which is luck, really, or whatever they're using, and track down the totem and break them all, it really wasn't very, very rewarding. So a change to that I support. Like, it gives you some options of things that are going to so you can play some Devour, play some Huntress Lullaby, like have some flexibility in your builds and do some different things. I don't like being locked into a set of perks because they perform well. I want to play stuff that feels right to me, and I still do, but it's hard to deny that your Ruin not going down in the first 45 seconds of the game because the spawns are still terrible. For the most part, like when a glowing totem still spawns right beside a generator, how bad is that? Like, the moment that they sit down at that generator, like, oh, hey, look, there's a hex totem, I should knock that out. Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing. So having the aura reading on all totems also made it a very powerful tracking perk on top of its other effects, and it's a little redundant with Hex Thrill of the Hunt. No one uses Hex Thrill of the Hunt. There's no reason to block off another dull totem by using Thrill of the Hunt. You can. It can give you greater uptime on your surviving totems, but if you're too busy chasing around and defending your totems, you're probably not going to be doing your job putting survivors into good chases and getting that 12 hooks that now you have a little meter on the side that tells you how many hooks that you have gotten, which really is a good measure of success. If you're busy defending your totems and they're just going to do the actual objective, which is doing gens. That's why Thrill of the Hunt, while it doesn't sound bad to play with it, devoting 3 slots or 4 slots to totem perks, it's not wise. It's not wise at all. So here are the changes coming to Hex Undying. Anytime a Hex totem is cleansed, it will replace the Hex Undying totem. Hex Undying totem is then deactivated. This ensures that the first totem cleanse is never your other hex perk. So what this means in a nutshell is that instead of having to cleanse all 5 totems, all they have to do is cleanse the 2 glowing ones. Doesn't matter which ones they are. So you get 1 extra life on your rune totem for 2 perk slots, or 1 extra life on your Devour or your Huntress's Lullaby totem for 2 perk slots. Is that worth? Not sure. I don't think so, to be honest. What the problem is that one of the things that we lack, we talk about gen speed all the time, and it's only slightly mentioned sometimes that we have a problem with lack of secondary objectives for survivors. So, all they have to do is focus on the gens. And until Hex Undying came along, all they had to do was focus on the gens. When Hex Undying came around, they now had to focus on a secondary objective to make sure that their primary objective was going to go smoothly and without issue, which also caused more stall in the game because people had to look for these totems. And even then, there are games that I have been steamrolled by good teams, and Hex Undying and Hex Ruin were up until the end of the game. The trick with Hex Undying and Ruin, and Ruin in general, is Ruin only rewards good killer gameplay. If you are putting pressure on the gens, if you are getting good efficient chases, if you are getting people on hooks, if you are spreading the pressure to all 4 survivors, you are going to get a benefit from Ruin. Ruin is going to help you regress those gens, even more so if it's still up later on mid-match, or even goodness gracious gravy closer to the end of the game. Then Ruin is really going to pay dividends. That's what Undying allowed it to do. Allowed it to stay up, allowed survivors to have to focus on a secondary objective so they could more efficiently complete their first objective. Now it's just find 2 glowing totems and it's done, and the killer has given up half of his perk slots to make sure that Ruin stays up a little longer. We've also been playing with Hex Undying long enough to where good squads are super duper trained to knock out totems as fast AF, right? And it almost doesn't matter at higher ranks, because the first 2 gens are probably going to go unless you've got super good pressure, and then it's those last 3 that Ruin is going to help with by having good pressure and playing the game as it's meant to be played, spreading that pressure among 4 survivors, getting good hooks, getting new chases, getting fast downs, and doing your best to play well as a killer. Ruin rewards that. Now, the fact that all you're going to have to do is cleanse 2 glowing totems instead of the possibility of maybe 3 or maybe 4. I question whether Undying will be worth a spot anymore, and that's, it's hard to say. Like, is that fine? Sure. Will I still probably try to use it occasionally? Yeah. Do I also prefer things like Surge? Yes, because it's no work for me to hit some down with an M1 attack, and in 32 meters it kicks all the gens, gets an 8% regression, and kicks stuff that I don't have to. I love Surge on all my killers, and I will still continue to use it. But Undying helps. Undying added a second objective to the game that survivors had to pay attention to. The problem is at lower levels, and if people don't have Detective's Hunch, or don't have a coordinated team, or aren't running rainbow maps, or any of those things, they feel penalized. Like, because it's super, super hard. I played those games as a survivor at lower ranks, where finally getting into the first few games that had Ruin felt very bad, because I know what I'm doing, and they know they need to cleanse the totems, but we're not finding them because we're not all loaded out to do so. So once again, we see a balance change that doesn't affect higher ranks as much, but is meant to make it easier for newer players and for less experienced people, and for people who just can't put the hours in to have every perk in the game or have a regular group of friends that they're playing with. And it's hurting killers at the top end by taking away that secondary objective that they needed to focus on to efficiently complete their first. Don't like it. Sucks. And you knew it was going to happen, and now it's here. So whatever. I mean, we're just going to keep going. I mean, I'm not going to quit playing killer. I played killer before Undying. I played killer before the original room was changed. But you do have to have some sort of slowdown. You really do. Like, if you want to go in there with 4 perks and you have no gen regression or gen management tools at your disposal, you better be very, very, very good. And you also better be prepared to lose some games, because there are people who will go and they will push those gens and they will waltz out the door. And now they will teabag in a much fancier fashion, since there's animations that are updated. You need to have something. You need to have a plan. It doesn't mean you can't play without gen regression, but you're kind of hurting your chances, depending on the killer that you're playing and whatever the case may be. Perks are meant to be used. Perks are meant to give benefit to you for using them. It's just questionable whether or not certain perks will still be of value. This is going to transfer the tokens. So like we talked earlier about, Devour or Huntress Lullaby, if your totem is cleansed, it's going to transfer those. Okay, that's great. Well, once again, you still get basically 2 totems that they've got to cleanse, which now they're pretty good at doing. Aura reading only applies to dull totems. This is fine. But the problem is you don't really care about defending or try to break up dull totem defense. Like you are, that's just, they are doing that secondary objective, which is pulling people off of just banging through generators. And so that's a passive stall that is baked into Undying. Plus, being able to see where those people are, if you're close enough, you might walk over there and break it up further, adding to that stall. You can also see if someone's on one of your lit totems. And you probably, if you're close enough, want to break that up. If you're not, you just discounted it and continued the chase that you were having. Having it only apply to dull totems, I think it's dumb. Half the time, your lit totem is somewhere halfway across the map from you, and there's nothing you can do about it anyway. And even if you're on a killer like the Nurse or Billy or whatever, now it's either forcing you to run a third totem perk like Thrill of the Hunt so you get notifications that those totems are going down, or just kind of leave it as it is. You might get some passive aura information, which is nice. Information is always good, but once again, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. We knew it was coming. We knew some adjustment. It feels overwhelming at early levels, and it feels like just about basically what you almost have to have at higher levels. And the change to it it makes it easier on lower levels and more enjoyable, which I support. But at higher levels, don't know if it's going to be something that you're going to actively want to run in every single build, and that's fine. But anytime where you're nerfing the smaller population of people that are desperately trying to hang on and play a game and find it enjoyable, which playing at rank 1 isn't always. Okay, it's not a big time party. If you win, you get crapped on. If you lose, you get crapped on, and sometimes you find some friendly folks, and that's always nice, especially when you try to play a straight game where you don't tunnel and you don't, you're not a campy bastard and you're not doing those things. The problem is that even if you do play as a very fair and straight killer, people are still going to talk crap. People are still going to wish that your mother had cancer. People are still going to tell you that you should, go die in a hole. Super fun. It doesn't matter. But we, the few, the proud, the people who remain killer mains, are going to keep doing what we're going to do until there comes a day where we just don't do it anymore. I've had to take multiple breaks over my 2,000 hours from Dead by Daylight. and I don't see one coming along soon, but it's stuff like this that hurts. Like they're catering to a much larger population, and they're catering to a much newer population. And it's good to bring in new players. It is. It's good to keep those new players happy, so they come in and they buy more stuff and they do more stuff and they play longer and they put the hours in and they enjoy the game. I love the game. I always will. But Hex Undying was a nice breather. Like, it was something that actually happened that wasn't some horribly garbage perk that they threw out with their new killer that no one is using. It was an actual quality thing that added a secondary objective to the game and helped give the killer a little more breathing room to have those good chases and have those good downs, and rewarded good gameplay. It didn't reward camping. It didn't reward, like being a douche nozzle. It rewarded good chases, good downs, and efficiency on the killer's part. And now it just, you can still get value from it, but you're more than likely not going to see it last past, maybe even mid-game anymore. Many times I'd have it gone in the first couple minutes of the game after the first couple chases. Is that worth? Maybe. But Rune is only working when people aren't on gens. So I don't know. We'll go on. Iron Maiden buff. Can be difficult to follow up with a survivor and hit a survivor 15 seconds of them exiting a locker, so we're increasing the duration of exposed effect to 30 seconds. Fine and dandy. It's a buff, straight buff to Iron Maiden. Wasn't really worth using up a perk slot on it before, outside of some gimmick builds, or possibly like with the Doctor, where people are hiding in lockers often. You might get some mileage out of it with Charlotte and Victor, because people are hiding in lockers often to dodge Victor, right? I mean, I think there's scenarios where you're going to see that be beneficial, but I don't know how many people are going to stray from their favorite 4 to 6 perks to all of a sudden throw Iron Maiden in because they doubled the amount of time to 30 seconds where people are exposed. I don't see it happening. Open-handed makes for interesting builds. Once again, it's a buff, increasing the aura range to 8, 12, 16 meters, but limiting the effects of open-handed to only one open-handed at a time to prevent it from getting out of hand. This is fine. The open-handed strength is when it plays with other perks like Kindred, or when it plays with trying to think, empathy. Any aura reading skills, open-handed buffs them, and that's great. Once again, is everybody going to start running open-handed with their windows of opportunity build? Probably not. But it is a buff to open-handed, but it does keep it under control so that only one of them at a time can stack, so you just can't see the entire map because all 4 of your team is running open-handed, so that's fine. Second wind, another simple one, reducing the amount of time it takes for second wind to heal you after being unhooked. And once again, a simple, straightforward survivor buff. And that's fine. It probably took a little too long for it to work in the first place, but it's fine. So that's really my bit. We are going to be playing the BTR. Overall, I'm not terribly enthused. I do want to see what how the clown plays. I'm excited for the shorter reload and to check out what the add-ons have done. Undying's change was inevitable because we know the game. We know that anything that kind of I don't know if favors killers. I mean, because perks are supposed to favor you. I mean, your perks should be good for you. They should do work for you. Something this game has long needed is a set of objectives at the highest levels for survivors to do. And what Undying did was effectively do that. And it also rewarded good killer gameplay by making you patrol gens and get good chases and get, efficient hooks. And now dropping it down, so all you gotta do is kill the 2 glowing totems that people have been trained pretty well over the last month or a couple months or so and they're getting really good at it, it may not be worth running anymore. We will see. We'll try, and I think you can still get some value out of it, but expecting to see the Rune Undying combo later in the later stages of the game is not going to be something that happens. Now, people have already talking where Devour Hope may become something more of a new meta, getting to your one hit down territory now, getting 3 stacks obviously of Devour Hope and having 2 chances at it for them cleansing totems is very attractive. So instead of Ruin, expect to see a lot of people running Devour Hope and one-hitting you into the ground. That's going to be super fun. Like, I think that the unintended consequences of Undying getting changed are going to see people relooking at things like Devour Hope, Huntress's Lullaby, but Devour Hope especially. There's no better stall than knocking everybody on the ground once you have 3 stacks of Devour, and making that game very difficult. Even if they find the totem and you still keep your stacks, expect Devour Hope. It's going to be a thing. The race changes are honestly slight quality of life changes, and it'll help a little bit, but I don't think they made any changes where it counts. You just basically put them into territory, like with Freddy running Pill Bottle. Like, once again, we're just giving someone else the same thing that someone else already has in the game, and it's fine. It's neat that they're giving him attention, and we'll play some Wraith tomorrow as well. But other than that, that's my thoughts. We will be playing the PTR tomorrow and for you on stream, and we'll continue making some beautiful videos and send them out to you. But this is the first in many of what we'll do as far as like the BronzeCast. Having a little fireside bronze action coming at you. This got a little long, and I apologize. And but there was a lot to talk about here. There really was. And so I hope that you stuck with me, and we will see you in the fog. Much love from the old man.